talk about Hogwarts Legacy, the video game, and we're going to start with the trailer of that game.
Itself is one of the most complex things we've ever built.
This grand space, the dream that it has been, I'm sure, for many people to be there, be in that space.
Making our dream castle and making a game, it's a balance, which means it doesn't stay like this, it seesaws back and forth.
Jason had probably only built like maybe 10% of the castle when we first started getting lost.
This was going to be huge. The castle was going to be massive.
People can get very emotionally attached to their work.
There were a few points in the process where we looked around and said, we don't have enough time.
And we really started getting into these discussions of what is right for the experience on that.
How stuff comes together is its own magic.
Every note is like a brick in the castle, and if we can put all those pieces together...
We always pull the magic out of the hat right out at the last moment.
Who would you be? What kind of student would you be? That was at the heart of the fantasy that we felt like we wanted to deliver on.
Legacy is the ultimate love letter to the fans. It's the best way to experience this universe.
Beating heart of this franchise was Hogwarts. We knew that we needed to bring it back home.
What's up, FanX? I'm Chandler Wood. I'm the community manager for Avalanche Software, and me and my friends, we make video games. Where are all my Gryffindors at? Okay. Hufflepuffs? I'm impressed. Ravenclaws? And the Slytherins? Yes, nice. Alright, I want to bring out a few of my friends on stage today from Avalanche Software to tell you a little bit about making this game. First up, game director Alan 2. There's a lot of people out here. It's a little bit different than being in front of a camera where all the viewers are just numbers.
Just a little.
Alright, we've got senior environment artist Boston Madsen. She's also a Wizarding World expert. And narrative director Moira Squire. And last but certainly not least, lead designer Kelly Murphy. And not just up on stage here with us, out in the audience, I know we have a few members of Avalanche here. Can all of you please stand up if you're here from Avalanche? We want to recognize you. Such an incredible place to work, and you know what? We're local. We're a Salt Lake City studio, and that's great because it was free parking. And you know, it's incredible to work for this studio. First of all, I want to give a big appreciation for you guys welcoming me to the studio.
Welcome.
I know a lot of you have been doing this a lot longer than I have, so to be here and to be presenting you and our game and everything to everybody here, it's an incredible opportunity. So forgive me, I'm going to use notes because I can't memorize a 50-minute panel.
Can you guys even see me next to this outfit? I'm not sure.
Kelly, are you a Gryffindor? I'm gonna ask the crowd what they think I am. Who thinks I'm Gryffindor? Well, actually, I'm Ravenclaw. These are tigers, not lions. Just saying.
We actually have 3 Ravenclaws, a Gryffindor, and a Slytherin up here. So all of our Hufflepuff representation organized the whole thing there backstage. All right. So you know, we're gonna have some fun today. We had a lot of chats preparing for this, and I think all of them devolved into just crazy laughter and fun. And I don't think we ever actually got through an entire run through of this panel, so we don't actually know what we're doing up here. But let's start with talking about the castle, because Hogwarts is the center of Hogwarts Legacy. It's the name of the game. It was the most important thing that we had to create. So Alan, tell us what that was like, bringing Hogwarts to life.
Real quick.
Real quick, just real quick. I think we got like half an hour. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I think for us, like when the project began, there was a lot of like we really wanted it. We really wanted to work on this game, and when we discovered that we were actually going to be able to work on the game, I think it was really suddenly terrifying for us, just because we wanted it because we're such huge fans, and then when you get it, you're like, oh, we can't screw this up. Like this has got to be really good, and when you're doing something like Hogwarts, it's just such a intimidating, scary place, just because there's so much love, there's so many stories, there's so many ways that we've kind of walked those halls in our minds, and we have all these expectations. And it's useful to think of how, I think in game development, we've got these different versions of the castle that we need to think about. One is the one that you guys have seen in the films, which changes from movie to movie, and then we need to figure out how to stitch all those things together. The other one is what it meant in the books and reading all those passages. And you had all these dreams that maybe weren't meant in the films that we wanted to make sure that we were paying off. And then finally, it's just how does it be fun? And how does it be a fun game to play? And what does it mean to kind of pack that with kind of adventure in a place where you keep coming back and back? And I think as we're chatting about it, I feel like those are the 3 big things that we're always trying to square. It's an incredible, like it was a nerve-wracking challenge. It was scary to us from beginning to end.
Well, the best, I think everybody who's ever read the books has created a version of Hogwarts in their mind. And so it was terrifying both to meet those expectations, but also I think that was what we drew on for inspiration. We were tapping back into a lot of just, what were those feelings as we first watched the movies or first saw the books, and that was Hogwarts to us, and that's what we tried to bring on the screen. But the castle really is just a stage for stories. For the story that we told, but I think we had a lot of fun creating Hogwarts as a stage for the stories that we hope the players would tell. So there were a lot of little extra details, just the way dorms were populated and decorated. We hope someone would project a story on top of that. And I think we saw that.
Well, and while we're making a game too, we have to make a game that in the book you can cut from scene to scene. You can go, oh, we're in the common room, now we're in the Great Hall. Movie, same thing.
Now we have to get you there.
Yep.
Yeah. And you have to fill those halls with things that are interesting, with story beats and characters and little conversations you can hear, little sort of wow moments, and that was really fun for our team to do, to come up with those little story bits and make it feel alive that you're actually at school with students and friends.
Yeah, I think that's one of the fun aspects of working with Boston's team and the writing team on the Hogwarts experience was trying to pick where we put, mission focus versus where we let people discover things, where we put books they could read or pieces of paper. I thought that was really a fun process.
Yeah, because it's not great if we're filling the castle with Easter eggs and then we're pointing them all out to you. That's no fun.
Right. We wanted it to feel like, as you explored the castle, it was yours, and that you found things. And
we find them, like we were saying, we find Easter eggs we didn't know were in there when we were playing.
Yeah, I would say too many, but I had fun finding them too. So, despite being game director, there's tons of stuff that the team would just sort of sneak in, and it could be a terror, but it wound up being a joy just because I think the whole company is full of fans. And I do feel like one of the funny things about the castle is, you know, when we read the books and we were trying to give everyone their experience within the castle, you know, we wanted to give you the same experience that Harry had. So in the books it describes it as a confusing experience for him. The castle changes on him. It's very wild. He got lost in it. And over the course of the books it's about eventually gaining that kind of mastery in school. And I guess the good news was for us that when we began the project, it was easy for us to confuse everyone. That was the easy bar.
We kept getting feedback from everybody that they were lost in the castle, and we couldn't figure out what they were talking about. We're just like, you're going to Charm's class, go up 8 staircases, 3 lefts, 8 rights, and just go forward a little bit. You'll find it just fine. And people were so lost, but we lived in the castle for so long, I don't think we realized it's a big castle.
Yeah, the journey of going from kind of like where people were saying they were confused and we're like, good, and then trying to get them to the point where by the end of the game they actually understood the castle was something that we just took tons and tons and tons of iteration. It was really complicated to kind of give people that sense of mastery.
Yeah.
Quick story I remember right at the beginning when blocking things out, we wanted to be as fair to all of the houses we could. And we made sure that we were trying to give them all the equidistance to the Great Hall for food, except for Hufflepuffs. They had a direct line, and we couldn't do anything about that. It just seemed right.
Sorry, you guys are in the kitchens.
So I know, Boston, I've heard stories that you've told about other difficulties that there were with creating the castle, and maybe some differences between how Americans view things and how British people do.
Oh, so many stories. I'm embarrassed to say how far into the project we got before we remembered that Americans count floors differently than Europeans. And we were being so careful. We were like, okay, everything's on the right floor that it says it's in the books, you know. We realized how many things are on the 7th floor. But we were, you know, trying to be so careful about that, and then we realized, oh, we count floors differently.
Yeah, the school is so large originally that we had AI, like all the students who had schedules and needed to go to classes, they were running everywhere to get there because the way time worked in the game, they didn't have enough time to just walk to classes. So we had like a Benny Hill style, like just everyone's running all the time. And we have a person on the team, Natalie, who's on the story team with Moira, who she's British. She handles all of our tone. And so everything goes through her, and when she saw that, it was really, really uncomfortable for her because she went to boarding school in England, and she's like, you don't run in school. That's a big
And of course, you guys know you can't operate in Hogwarts.
Yeah.
She sat our team down, and she talked us through what it's like to go to a British boarding school, and all of us Americans were a little bit traumatized. So we're just, you know, don't talk in the halls. It was very rigid, but it's also a Victorian time period, which also proved a lot. Anyway, that gave us some fun challenges to overcome.
Yeah, Hogwarts was the center. That was the first thing we really had to do, right? We had to get Hogwarts right. But the next thing we wanted to do was make a game that was not somebody else's story. This isn't Harry Potter's story. This isn't Newt's story. It's far from those things. How did we create a game that let people live out their own Wizarding World fantasies?
Well, we wanted to pick a time period that was accessible to a modern day audience, right? So the language wasn't going to be medieval or too far back in time. That was close enough to the Harry and Newt times that you might recognize a last name, or you know, a location, or a ghost. And we wanted to make sure it was close enough but different enough that you were the hero of the story, right? You're not competing with the other heroes in the Harry Potter universe.
Yeah, in a lot of ways we we began at kind of like Harry's time period, and then we said, well, are these characters going to overshadow your story because we want this to be about you? And then we kind of grabbed that kind of slider and just kind of kept going backwards until we're like, okay, this is different enough, this is far enough from the different characters and the different things that you know and love, so it can really be your story. And I remember we were kind of sliding backwards, and in lore, you know, we had a headmaster that was appearing, Headmaster Black, and we were reading how, I guess very different than Dumbledore, who's kind of known as this kind of guiding figure throughout the books. We bumped into Black, who in lore was known as the least popular headmaster the school has ever had, and we're just like, that just sounds too much fun to let go of. Yeah, we need that guy. But
and then you get Simon Pegg to voice him. And
oh yeah, yes.
We're good.
Which was amazing. So I think, but that being said there, it just kind of meant that we got to make it about you, but we knew that there were going to be familiar faces too, and that was exciting for us. There's not just names that you might recognize, but you know, we knew Peeves was someone that was kind of perpetual. We knew Nearly Headless Nick and the Ghost were all pieces. So between family names and different things, we knew that there would be lots of references and fun things to grip onto, and it's all about these things where we kind of meet expectations and different places where we play with them. And it was just it was an incredible palette to work with. I mean, everyone here who's fans, you know, knows how much that kind of world fills your imagination and all the different things that you could put into it. And I've never worked on a game that's had this many kind of fantasies that people come to the table with, different things that they want to do, that they want to explore, and different things that were kind of available to us as part of our palette, and even a lot of things that we left on the table and were sad to leave on the table. I won't mention the Q word.
Not say the Q word.
Okay.
Well, we had Headmaster Black who could come in and cancel it for the year, so that was
a great way to make you dislike him right away.
So Kelly, from a gameplay design perspective, as we tried to set out to make sure that people could live their fan fantasies, what's on your plate in terms of making that happen?
I think one of the fun things about working with this property and Avalanche is we start out by just trying to identify what the fantasies are that fans bring to the game and what they might want to do. And so that begets a lot of conversation around, you know, should this be a mission, or should it be a moment, or should it be a mechanic? And so I think, you know, a lot of, you know, one of the fantasies is Hogwarts in and of itself, and going there and having that feeling, like we were talking earlier, of being lost when Harry started out at Hogwarts, or anyone when you started a new school. And that was a really hard one for me personally, because as a designer, you want to guide the player, make sure they know what they need to do, where they need to go, and you know, it took us a while to figure out.
Well, most games don't start you, you know, in a location or like a building that's larger than most video game cities. Like it was pretty nuts, I think, beginning with that and saying, okay, we have no choice but to tackle that problem.
And we got to go to Hogsmeade, and we got to go to Gringotts, and there were a lot of places that we went that you never got to really explore before, which was incredible.
It was fun to be able to flesh out that world in a way that only the medium of games can do, right? And so
I know our team kept pushing secret rooms and passageways. We just kept trying to add more and more, and Alan even was like, you guys have enough. And we realized the problem was they weren't secret to us, so they almost like didn't count anymore. I had to keep reminding us to the general public, this is enough. But it was easy to forget.
Yeah.
We had fun too with exploring certain aspects of the lore that maybe wouldn't quite fit into our game, but finding ways to fit them in, such as Deathly Hallows. You know, that's in there. If you've played it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, there's something in there that you can play.
Yeah, and that was a lot of it. It was kind of like there's a bunch of new moments that we want to make sure we're adding and that we're saying and that we're bringing to the table. And we even had kind of a rule of thumb when we were working on it, where we said, hey, for every one new thing that we add, you know, we want to have 9 things that are authentic and that fans recognize, because we really felt like there's a big job ahead of us where we really need to earn the trust of the community, you know, and we didn't want to assume anything about that. But lining up all those fantasies of everything you want to do, it's really just kind of like at the beginning of the game, you just wanted to be irresponsible. You just wanted to throw everything on there, and we don't know how we're going to do it. And then you take that list, and then everyone asks you to turn that into a borderline irresponsible list.
And I really feel bad for Story from Laura's team, because we would come to her with like, okay, here's what needs to happen in this mission. Like, you're gonna ride a grab horn, and you're gonna use it to like open this secret space. And it's like, figure that one out.
Okay, that's easy, sure, we'll do that, yeah.
So, and
it's fun though, it's collaborative. That's, you know, it's great because you have an overarching story, you've got a story that you want to tell, and then there's things in a game that you've just got to do. You've got to get places, you have to fight people, that are, you know, things that you might not do in a regular story. You've got to think of reasons that make sense to do that. And fans get it. They know that we're pushing the envelope a little bit in places to get us out to do those things, and I think we struck a good balance.
And it's game development too. So a lot of the people you work with are like, more action, more, you know, more shooting, more, you know, whatever, because that's just kind of how they think coming down. But I think for us, it's like, when we talk about tentpole moments and big things that happen in the game and moments that we want to deliver, I think like a lot of folks would think of just kind of high action moments, but for us, it's like the first time you go to Charms, it's going to be a moment. You know, the first time you're out and you say up to, you know, to your broom, that's a moment. You know, the first time you get on that, that's a moment. You know, seeing Gringotts, that's a moment. So it was about making sure that those things, like identifying the things that it's not just these big kind of action-packed moments. It's also these little things that fans have just been dying to experience, or see a common for the first time that they've never seen before, or kind of round the corner and wonder how everything's stitched together. And it just became all the stuff that we cared to get right.
Every single time I play the game, and I've played it a few times, and you come up and you see Hogwarts coming up, I still get chills every single time.
This property, working on this property, like that trailer that we showed for the making of that we're making, I've seen that trailer a million times now.
We all worked on it that moment.
I was still like back there going like, oh, okay, dry those off before I get on stage. Like, yeah, it's just, it's a magical property to work for. And with, hey, I haven't said authentic yet.
Somebody else did. I heard.
All right, so, you know, spells. Magic is also at the center of Hogwarts Legacy. How do we determine what spells went into the game? That was an easy process, right?
I want all the spells in the game. You're probably better off answering that question to start.
Well, I mean, when we started, we actually, I mean, we're like anybody else. We'll kind of hit the wikis and see all the stuff that's out there. So we're looking at everything from every game and you know, and the films and the books. And I remember our first list had over 300 spells, you know, that we could potentially kind of pick from. And when I talk about that irresponsible, you know, beginning, that's kind of part of it. But a lot of it just becomes like, what are the very iconic things? What are like, they're representative of the brand, you know, things like Accio and things like Reparo, and what are the big things? And then some things are kind of like what's just kind of fun to do, and what are just kind of fun spells to interact with. But yeah, solving the problem of how to jam the fantasy, which is really, you're casting a whole bunch of spells from memory, and you can kind of rattle off anything and have them fire off, and then try to jam that into X number of buttons on your controller that also have to do everything else, jumping and interacting and everything. It was actually just a massive challenge for the team. And if I'm being honest, you know, like years into the game, and even just like months before release, you know, there's just a certain amount of like, you know, like I hope all this stuff comes together right, and I think we're on the right track. It's just it's so hard when you care a lot, and you know you're your own just kind of, you know, you're just a nerd your whole life, and you're just trying to make sure this is good. You know, to just be utterly confident, like, oh yeah, we nailed it. It's more just like, oh my god, I hope we don't screw this up. You know, we hope people like it.
Yeah, the reaction I think that came out toward the combat. I want to just make sure to mention Troy Johnson and Marcus Fisher. They're in the crowd here. Lead combat designer Troy, Marcus Fisher, creative director. They worked really hard, and honestly, I didn't think we'd pull it off. Not because of them, just because it's such a hard problem to solve, and there's so many expectations, and they did a great job.
Yeah, I feel like figuring out what a wizard duel was definitely a thing. So they had a target. they knew they wanted it to feel right, but getting that felt like its own journey for us. There really wasn't another game out there that we could just kind of like say, it's exactly like that. We couldn't do that. And I remember early on, you know, like in the films, you'll see characters kind of like, you know, they'll be flinging spells while running, so they're like, okay, we need to be able to run and fling spells. But you get in the game and you start like running and flinging spells, and it just starts feeling like a shooter, like it just feels wrong. And so all those things wound up kind of changing the texture of it until they kind of found like this idea, like, oh, it's more like long-range fencing. You know, it's kind of like this, but then there's all these problems with like, how do we, it's like when you're far away, you don't need to move because everything's a shooting gallery, then how do we get that kind of motion in combat, and how do we get those things kind of like moving? So there's all these little pieces that even we don't know as we're kind of going through and exploring that become part of the journey. But like, we're really proud of the team, and we're really proud of where it landed and how that experience feels and the way people were reacting to it.
So Moira, tell us a little bit more about empowering the player character again, and allowing the player to put themselves in, starting with the character creator.
Yeah, we wanted you to feel like it was you that was in the game, or the you that you wanted to be in the game. So of course you can create almost any kind of look and any kind of voice, and we wanted to create, and it's challenging to create an avatar who's the protagonist of a game that it can be anybody, right? So you want to give somebody a presence without giving them too strong an individual personality, because you don't want it to conflict with whoever the player is, right? So you want to have something that's fun and interesting, and somebody who's clever as the avatar with a voice, but doesn't contraindicate or contradict whatever the player's feeling or thinking. And I think we got it. We struck a really good balance. You might want to talk more about the character here, Alan. I think you were more involved in that than I was.
Well, I mean, mostly, like, all throughout this, it's just, we wanted to make sure that, we just want to make sure that the dream of you going there was something that we could offer. And so it's like it's everything you're saying. It's we just want to make sure that there's enough options that you could see yourself in the characters. And, you know, we're always very self-conscious, where it's like, oh, we wish I had to do more, and even more, and even more. But we want to make sure that enough options were there, that you felt like you were there, and then you were kind of stepping out and going on an adventure yourself. And even within us, like as a team, development-wise, there's a lot of conversations. There are times where we're saying, well, we want more backstory. We want to know who we're playing and what's going on. And I guess for better or worse, as we're, you know, it's like I'm making that decision. It's just kind of like, excuse me. We want to make sure that you feel like you can imprint, and that we're not getting in there with you. And so some of those desires for like, well, what exactly was my backstory, we kind of left intentionally kind of vague. That way you could just begin stamping kind of your own picture of your story as you go in. But yeah, I feel like that's even an ongoing conversation, you know, and there's things that you know, in production and as we work, that we've kind of learned as we've gone through that last process, where we'd love to keep playing with that formula.
I love 15-year-old Victorian me. I looked awesome in that game.
You're so stylish.
So stylish.
So Moira, the Wizarding World is full of really iconic characters, and as we threw ourselves back to the late 1800s, how did we create our own brand of iconic characters, memorable characters from this period, without just repeating the same characters that the franchise has had already?
Yeah, we didn't want to have, you know, duplicates, right? We didn't want to have Snape, we didn't want to have Dumbledore, McGonagall. We love all those characters, we wanted our own. So what we were looking at was how we could get a diversity of personalities, of genders, ethnicities, just a whole mix of people to make them your experience, right? So our professors run the gamut from, you know, joyful and fun, like Professor Ronan, to sort of a little crotchety, like Professor Sharp, who teaches potions, and our deputy headmistress, Professor Weasley. You guys might know that name from just somewhere else. Who's, you know, like the Victorian schoolmarm. She's our McGonagall, but she's not McGonagall. She's a little bit different. She's got a kind of a softer edge.
But at one point, she was even more grandmother.
She was.
She was much more Molly Weasley.
She was much more Molly Weasley, and it was great, and she looked darling, but it was just not, it didn't fit with where the game was going. We needed somebody who was a little not sterner, but a little more serious, to give her an arc, so at the end, spoiler alert when something happens, which I won't tell you if you haven't played the game, she's got somewhere to go, right? And so you get to know her better, and she's not as open until the end. And so we made her have a little higher collar with the character team and the design team to make her look different, and then her voice had to be different, and her dialogue had to be different. So I love where we ended up with her.
And then the students as well, the friends that you make at school, that's such an important part of the Wizarding World, of attending Hogwarts, is the friends and the rivals and the people that maybe you're a little annoyed at. So, what was your process in creating characters like that?
Well, we have a great story team. I think most of them are actually here somewhere. I can't see you guys, but I know you're out there somewhere. There you are. Such a creative group of folks that came up with just ideas for biographies for people, right? So you have, the nerds and the kind of like the John Hughes version of Hogwarts, right? You've got the nerds and the jocks and the brainiacs, and you've got to mix the pranksters, and we wanted to have kind of that run the gamut, and have in each house you have somebody like that you can talk to, and then in the hallways you see. We were talking about Natalie earlier, Natalie Gray, who wrote. She's not here today, she's in Los Angeles, but she did a ton of writing for the characters in the background that you see in the hallways, right? Or in the
Those were the funniest conversations.
There's a sheep thing in the hospital wing, if you guys have played the game, that is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. To make even those students seem engaged. And they all have lives, they all connect. Like, even though they're unnamed, they all have houses, and they all have crushes on somebody, and they all have, if you listen to those conversations, it's very intertwined. So we tried to do that throughout the game.
What was cool about that too is I think people on the team had different characters who were their favorite. And I remember Stephen Dunna, I don't know if he's here, but he's a systems designer on the team. His favorite character is Duncan Hobhouse. And so we made a point to make sure that Duncan got a mission, and I think you guys did a great job of really characterizing Duncan as this young student who's trying to impress older students, and and then we allowed the player.
Terrified of Puffskeins.
Yeah, and he's Puffskein Duncan, but we allowed the player also to. I'm going to swear. Can I swear? Can I say no? I swear. To be a jerk. Okay, to be a jerk. So when we were talking about hey, how does evil play into this game, and how do we scratch that itch in our missions? When it came to kids at school, we were just hey, we want you to, be a little jerk. It's fine. And so it's really fun to make those jerk-like decisions around these sweet characters like Duncan Hobhouse, or annoying characters like Zenobia Noak. It was really fulfilling for me to be able to knock her gobstones back.
We also knew, so when we began the game, we had a bunch of different relationship lines, we called them, and we even had to leave a bunch on the cutting room floor. But because we didn't know who you were coming in and what your fantasy of yourself was, the way we tried to kind of set up those relationship lines was to say, here are the different things that the player might project that they want to be, and then seed those kind of fantasies out there, where if we want a more, say, new-like experience, we might choose Poppy. If we want to have more just kind of like a classic hero experience, we might choose Natty. If we want to explore the dark arts, then it's Seb. And so it's really just about trying to make sure that we're giving you a way to kind of tell us, who you are as a wizard and what do you want to be, and then make sure there's a way to explore those fantasies.
All right, I want to ask each of you, let's start with Alan and go down the line. What are each of you most proud of in or about Hogwarts Legacy?
It's kind of funny because I reach out a little bit from just the game when I think about what makes me really happy today. I really feel like everyone who read the books and kind of fell in love with it, and then maybe shared it with their families, or shared it with their friends, or maybe built communities around it. I really love the ways that I feel like the brand has actually brought people together. And so I think after release, hearing people's stories, it's kind of it's in families. It's when we're hearing from parents sharing with their kids. It's about sibling sharing. It's about friendships and people talking about sharing. But also, I've always been a gamer, like I've always been a diehard gamer, and I have a weird pride about gaming, where I'm just like, I love gaming. But for anyone who is a gamer, you know, oftentimes there's a divide between gamers and non-gamers even in houses. And the amazing thing for me was watching how this brand was kind of crossing that bridge with people and with families, and hearing stories from you guys about how you're the not-gamer in your life was talking to the gamer in your life and finally sharing the hobby itself. Like for me as a gamer, I'm just like, this is incredible. Like I'm so thankful for the way people have embraced it, because those stories are amazing to me. I feel like that's what I'm most thankful for.
Austin, what about you?
Do you remember the question, Austin? Because I know Alan talked for a little while there.
Typical Alan.
No, there is. I think just something that makes me really happy and still delights me when I see it is just how everybody found a home in Hogwarts and just found so much joy in the castle, and that still just tickles me when I see it. Yeah, I'm really proud of that.
Even now, 6 months later, it's amazing to watch back and see just reactions and the continued reaction to it.
And it's not just a lot went into that. Kudos to every team, because everything fed into that. But.
Hundreds of people.
I have to say, I think that when you find elements of story that you've contributed to that seem to impact people or touch people in a way that you weren't expecting or that you hoped, frankly, I don't know, I'm sure, is Kate here? Kate here? One of our writers, anyway. We worked on this house elf, Deke, and there's a storyline where he loses a friend house elf. It's a little bit sad. And when we were writing that, I was kind of pulling into my experience of loss. And I read online some people talking about, oh, this conversation is just how I felt when I lost this person in my life or something. And it just made me feel like, oh, they get it, right? And that just, I thought, wow, what we felt writing it was conveyed through the game, which I thought was incredible. And so that kind of stuff, those moments are what I love.
Kelly?
Do I get as much time as Alan got?
Yes.
Okay, good. No, actually, the thing I'm most proud of is the fact that we did this. This studio in Salt Lake, who everyone confuses with another studio in Sweden. We've been told a lot over the years that we can't do this, and I've told that to myself. And the fact that we pulled this off, and it's been more successful and loved than we could have ever imagined. Like that's my favorite thing. And it just, I think personally for me, it helps me feel like, we can do more. And don't listen to the haters, yo. And this guy, this middle-aged white guy in a tracksuit, is worth more than he thinks. No, I'm just kidding.
That's great. Yeah, and it's honestly, it's been amazing to be part of the studio, to be, like I said, me and my friends, we make video games, and it's so cool, and it's so easy, and absolutely nothing goes wrong, which is exactly why me and the marketing team pulled together this reel of bugs from the game in development.
Not seen this.
Oh yeah, we didn't show it to any of you.
answer that. Ranrock is working with Rookwood.
The goblin from the Daily Prophet. It will take time to grow.
I'm curious. My friend appreciates their privacy.
Run along then. Class is dismissed. Unless there's something else.
Game development is hard. I'm sure I just brought up so much trauma from the last 5 years for all of you. But thank you all so much for coming out here and listening to us banter a little bit and talk about making the game. Thank you for coming up here and joining me on stage, and thank you everybody at Avalanche, the ones who are here supporting us and the ones who are cheering us on from home right now.
Thank you.